as the session progresses, if you have any questions, would request you to put the questions in the Q&A box. Alternatively, you can put it in the chat box, but it becomes a bit difficult for us to track. So would appreciate if you could use the Q&A box. That's on the housekeeping piece. So we are ready to start. It's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker of the day, Amit Ghosh. Amit is an executive coach, trusted advisor, and confidant to founders and senior business leaders. He partners with leaders to build high-performing teams and drive deep personal transformation from within. Prior to his coaching career, Amit spent over 2 decades in the tech industry, including a recent stint as a C-suite executive at a B2B software scale-up. When he's not coaching, he's a doting dad to his 7-year-old daughter, Ria, and learning about AI, Eastern wisdom, and the craft of writing. Amit will be speaking today on a very intriguing and what may seem counterintuitive topic, the coaching paradox, why moving slowly creates results. Over to you, Amit.
Thank you for having me, Sunanda and Himani. It's great to be here.
One second, Amit. Just wanted to check, is there an echo that is coming in the voice when you were hearing Sunanda?
No, not for me.
All right, fine, great. Thank you. Thanks.
So thank you, Sunanda, and thank you, Himani, for having me here. I feel very excited to be here today with all of you, and thank you all for joining from different parts of the world. I'm looking forward to this conversation, and I really want to make this a conversation with all of you. I don't want this to be just me speaking. So if you can help me through the conversation to use the chat function, use the Q&A function, as Sunanda said, for the Q&A, but use the chat function to share your thoughts. And I'll ask you explicitly to do so from time to time. So let's begin. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, as Sunanda said, I'm going to present a few case studies in the interest of showing where, as coaches or organizations or sponsors of coaching, we could benefit from slowing down. And this is not the guidance we get because, we live in a world where everything wants to be moving fast. Companies want results fast, leaders want results fast. But I'm going to present a few case studies where that didn't go well, and we'll have a discussion. But before we get into that, a little bit about myself. As Sunanda said, I spent 2 decades or more in the technology industry. Did a variety of different roles, which I feel benefits me as a coach now. So, spent some time in BD, operations, strategy, and started my career as a software engineer. I had the fortune of leading teams and a P&L globally, which is what actually where I discovered coaching initially as a client. And once I discovered coaching as a client, it led me to become a coach. And as a coach, I coach leaders from both startups and large corporates. Most of my work revolves around leadership development. Within that, topics like decision-making, communication come up. But I think by and large, where things end up often in at least a decent length coaching program is where people discover more about themselves and how they shift their inner self to be a better leader. I'm an ICF trained coach. I'm PCC credentialed now, also Hogan Level 2 certified. And most of my work revolves in the India, Southeast Asia, and Australia region. And one of the biggest blessings of coaching I find is that I can continue learning. And I'm hoping to do so today as well through the feedback you guys will share as we go along this conversation. The lens I bring today is primarily one-on-one coaching, because that's what I do largely. I do occasionally work with teams, either for large group workshops, offsites, or sometimes group coaching or team coaching. But I'll focus on one-on-one today. And I'll also bring a case study of organizational change where coaching was instituted as a culture, and see what we can all learn from that experience. So before we argue and before we think about, why moving slowly and deliberately can be helpful, I'd like to share at least my thoughts on why speed is important and why organizations, leaders want speed. Clearly, there is, financial pressures. I think in our part of the world, especially, I think there is a quick ROI mentality, whether it be leadership interventions or any other program. Time is, of course, money, and we are conscious of that. And then there is, this part of the world, there's a lot of fast-moving organizations. And what that means is that change, whether it be talent development related or cultural development related, I think the need is for quick change. But let me ask you, and this is where I would request your help as we go around to make this a conversation and not a one-sided presentation. In your work, wherever you are, whatever role you play, whether you're in an organization or whether you're a coach or whether you're a consultant, if you are working in the talent and culture development space, where do you find speed as a pressure point? If you don't mind putting in the chat, that would be really helpful for us to all learn from each other. I'll give you 30 seconds. Yeah, digital transformation, Kaushik. Yeah, everybody wants that to go quickly. Any other thoughts? Really, I think what you can keep typing, but I think the summary for me really is, irrespective of the role you play, whether you are a CHRO, whether you're an HR leader, whether you're a sponsor of leadership intervention coaching programs, or whether you're a coach, I think there is a genuine pressure to move fast. So let's start with the first case study of where I didn't see this working well. And before I jump into the case study, I want to highlight that not all of these are mine. So I would like to thank a bunch of my friends who have contributed case studies, which I'm bringing on their behalf for our common learning. So the first one is from an organization, which is a fast-moving organization. The leader profile is a C-suite leader in a high-growth firm. The leader had been in the firm at that point around 4 years, highly regarded, capable, and got promoted to be a C-level leader for the first time, and found a tricky landscape. Some of his direct reports were a bit errant. He himself felt like an imposter taking that role. And there were org change layoffs in the near vicinity. So it was a tough time for the leader. So rightfully, they requested the CHRO for a coach. The CHRO consulted the CEO and sponsored the program. And then again, re-sponsored it for another 6 months. So 6 months and 6 months, sponsored it twice. But once the coaching ended, 6 months later, the leader got fired. Now, this is not usual for somebody who was highly regarded, had spent time in the firm, they were not joining laterally, they got the support. I haven't told you much, but maybe take a few guesses what might have gone wrong. And if you are the sponsor or the coach in this kind of a situation, what would you do differently? If anybody wants to speak up, that's also fine. That's more comfortable. But definitely, I'd love some opinions or thoughts in the chat you have. Yeah,
If
that's a
anybody
good
would
one.
like to speak up, they could please raise their hands. Otherwise, please put it in the chat box.
Thank you, Sananda. And you're right. Yeah, use coaching as a remedial measure. I think my main takeaway here, okay, yeah, leader didn't accept the change. Yeah. That's a good point, Bilal. Yeah, leader didn't expect the change. Tri-party session. I don't think that happened, Ida. Not coachable. Interesting. That's also a possibility, Rahima. Coach, you do not believe in coaching. Actually, in this case, the coachee actually believed in coaching. That's why they had requested, they were committed. What really happened in this case is there was no involvement from the organization, and there was no interest from the client or the coachee to engage the organization either. So the CEO and the CHRO both sponsored the coaching, but the C-level leader, but they were disconnected after sponsoring the coaching. There wasn't a talent development plan put in place before. There wasn't a expectation after the coaching ended. So while the coachee worked on some areas and made some progress, and actually made some good progress in the areas they cared about, the organization and especially the CEO wanted to see some other change. So really, I think where things broke in this case is not where the coachee didn't take action. And that can happen, by the way, as well. And we have a case study around that. But in this case, really, I think the challenge of the organization and the coachee were not aligned. And neither party took the initiative to get aligned. So coachee worked on his own. The CEO and the CHRO were busy running the business. And frankly, at this level, because we are talking about the C-suite level leader, the responsibility lies with the leader to engage their organization. Usually that is the expectation, that C-suite leaders at that seniority in any given firm will take the initiative to align. And that's the miss here. So what could the CHRO or coach should have done? They could have potentially nudged the client in that direction. Even if they didn't, and they couldn't own the process, it was the coachee's process to own. Really, I think that's where it broke. So what I take away from this is, two things. One, you have to have a talent development plan, and coaching can't just be an ad hoc fix. I think one of you said it was not, it was not part. It was a remedial measure, right? And it was. And the second thing I would say is clients and coaches need to take responsibility to align what they are working with the organization. Let's move on to the next case study, and this is an interesting one. So Tom is a fictional name of a real person. He's a fast-rising superstar, very well regarded, delivers great results. He's in a multinational firm. The regional MD nominated him for coaching so that he is prepared for the promotion to the next level later in the year. And the coaching includes, as in many coaching processes, includes a 360-degree process, 360 feedback process, as well as a three-way sponsor check-in. And in the sponsor check-in, Tom says, I don't really believe in coaching. And what do the coach do in that moment? They pause. It is a bit of an awkward moment, but the discussion continues. But as the coaching progresses, it comes to a grinding halt in one way or the other after a few sessions. The coach eventually realizes this is not going anywhere and they terminate the program. And unfortunately, Tom also doesn't get promoted that year. So maybe I'll ask you all again. What would have helped create a different outcome? Where could any of the sponsor, the coach, or Tom slow down, been deliberate? What do you guys think? This one seems to be a tough one. Nobody's typing on chat. The big takeaway for me here, frankly, is that coaching needs courage. And what I would say, while there could be many things, yeah, Bilal, referring to successful outcomes, great, Bilal, you should have accepted change. Dr. Wilson, I'm curious, what do you mean by the career development narrative is flawed? Could you elaborate on the chat? Or you can speak up as well if you want. That's how coaching fits in. Yeah. How does coaching fit? That didn't happen again. So it's similar like the previous one. But for me, I think, you all are raising valid points, and I think these are great takeaways as well for us, right? Was the career development narrative not right? Did he accept the change? Was it part of the development plan? Yeah, Professor Elias, I think that's fair. Be patient. Yeah. Yeah, for me, I think, what I take away when I learn about this case study is really, I think, coaching, and especially as coaches or even sponsors of coaching, we need the courage to slow down, and we need the courage to address resistance, especially when people are nominated for coaching in organizations. And that happens quite often. Even if you position coaching as something beneficial, for somebody who believes, has high conviction in themselves, like Tom believed that he was a superstar. Everybody told him he was a superstar. So coaching was a bit of a, hey, why do I need coaching? Yeah, Dr. Wilson, valid point. Similar to the last case study, the career development plan was non-existent, and coaching was just offered as a step towards the promotion, but without good explanation. But I think in this case, I would say the responsibility was with both the coach and the sponsor to slow down. And instead of continuing in that conversation and moving along, I believe they should have slowed down right there and really taken the time to address that resistance. Because that statement which Tom made was quite clearly an example of, or a clear signal of what's going to come in the future. I'm very happy that you guys are all chiming in, so please keep doing that. And also, if you have questions, pop in to the Q&A and we can either take it now or later. Jeff wants to speak. Hey, Jeff.
Yes, yes, Amit. Can you go back to the slide before? It's quite interesting, that story. They have put the right thing in place, right? 360 feedback, three-way sponsor check-in, stuff like that. But you say they are rushing. In a way, are they rushing? I don't see the rush here. I see that maybe they did not so-called get alignment, or get Tom to understand what is coaching. I mean, that's my take. Yeah.
And that's a valid point and a valid question, Jeff. I don't mean they're rushing in the process. Actually, the process was, the coaching process was well designed, right? I think that where they didn't slow down was in that moment where Tom said, I don't really believe in coaching.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
And that one moment effectively was the precursor of everything which came.
Mm.
Because we could have known that if somebody doesn't believe in coaching and going and even saying that, right, that's an admission that they are not bought in. They are there to be there because the regional MD has nominated this person, but they are not bought in. And time and again, I would say, at least in my own experience, I have seen coaching doesn't succeed when the coachee is not bought in, because the change is theirs to make. As coaches or sponsors or the organization, we can all support, but we can't force the horse to the water. And we can't force them to drink. They will have to make the change. So I would say that's the only moment where they could have slowed down. Process-wise, Jeff, you're right. It was.
Amit, there's one question I have. Did they get Tom to choose to give a choice of coaches?
Yes. Tom did the. Tom got a choice. They didn't take the choice. Tom only meant one of the three coaches offered to him. And he decided to go with the coach, but frankly, he was not there. He was just running on the process.
Thank you,
Dr.
Amit.
Wilson. No, you're welcome. Thank you for sharing and asking. Dr. Wilson, you have a thought or a question? So Nanda, do you mind unmuting
Yeah,
Dr.
just
Wilson?
just give us a moment. Dr. Wilson, you can speak up now. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. My take is that before you go into a coaching, you need to basically narrate the benefit of the coaching. It's a career development plan, something that we want to set you up for success. And I noticed that in a lot of these coaching situations, we don't do enough, if you like, of the selling. And then also to establish whether, right in the first instance, whether this person is coachable or not. Now, if this person doesn't understand coaching, there's great opportunity to turn him around by explaining to this coachee the advantage of coaching, right? So I always use this case. I'm a Vistage coach like Jeff. I always say, look here, why do champions have coaches and ordinary people don't have coaches? Because they want to be on top. They want support.
Yep.
They are always at their excellence. And the company wants to basically put you in this excellent position. So there needs to be a lot of warming up and also to establish whether this person is coachable. If it's not, then no use to continue the narrative in the first place. Because he feels threatened.
That's a fair point. Yep.
He feels threatened. Yep. He feels that, no one has, I do not know what this coaching is about. So the first thing he does is he basically just discard it. And I think it's our fault because we haven't basically presented the positive side of coaching. Coaching is supposed to help you, to make you a better person, not to basically to discredit you or to find faults with you. It's not a witch hunt. The problem is a lot of people, they come
but
with
it's
this.
perceived that way many a
Yeah,
times,
they
as you
perceive that
know,
way.
right?
Then that's right. They come up with these negative comments.
And I think you sparked a thought in me that almost like before you start coaching, and especially if an organization is sponsoring a coaching, there needs to be a little bit of mini coaching before the coaching.
Correct.
Almost,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Almost to both assess, both share, as you said, Dr. Wilson,
Yes.
what is good about coaching, but also what are their hesitations, if any, or what is the
Exactly.
resistance, if any.
Yeah. Because it's
But
a
thank you.
two-way, it's a two-way communication. A relationship is established because the coachee needs to know me as well, and I needs to know the coachee. And once you have broken the ice, then that coaching flow through is much easier.
Thank you. Thank you for chiming. Very
You're
valid
most
points.
yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next case study. So this one is about timing. So in this case, the coachee or the eventual coachee or the leader in question is a male coming to Asia from part of the world, from other part of the world. Very successful in where they were, but led a team which is mostly masculine or males primarily, and moved to Southeast Asia to lead the sales function. But this Southeast Asia team had 60% females. So the HR naturally thought, okay, look, this is a new environment. We should get him a transition coach. But as you often probably will notice in organization, the CFO said, look, nothing's broken, so what's there to fix? And frankly, we don't have budget for this. Very soon, what was expected, what the HR expected, unraveled, but in interesting ways. People in the team started filing compliance grievances, which are not ethical in nature by any means, but it just interpersonal issues of how the sales leader was leading the team. And eventually, the HR stepped in as the coach, worked with the coach, and got them to transition. But 4 months were gone, and that, of course, had adverse impact. Where do you all think the leader or the HR or the CFO could have slowed down in this process? Thankfully, in this case, things turned around, but there was time lost. And in that time, there was a bunch of other things which went wrong in that 4 months, or a little bit more than 4 months, probably 6 months before the leader started turning around. What do you feel? What could have the leader or the HR or the CFO have done? I think my big takeaway here, and if you have suggestions or thoughts here, I'd love to hear. But frankly, my big takeaway, oh yeah, okay, that's a good one, Zara. Coach should be hired before sales leader relocation. But that one is also tricky because a coach cannot be hired without. I assume you mean with the sales leaders buy-in. But yeah, it could be hired even before they relocate. Actually, even 3 to 6 months, at least 3 months before, so that the transition starts a little bit early. Any other thoughts? My big takeaway, and from
You mentioned here that APAC say no budget, so they cannot hire a coach, isn't it? Is that what I'm saying?
yeah, they said no
Yeah.
budget, but that's the
Yeah.
response of most CFOs. The first response is no budget.
Okay. So they say no budget means no go, isn't it? Is that what I should say? I should think so. So how do we hire a coach then?
Yeah. That is a legitimate challenge here, right? But I would say, there's always budget, but the case was not well made, I would say. Yeah, let me read. Maru, he could have taken the time to understand. Yeah, very valid point. Could have insisted more. Yeah. So yeah, look, I think my big takeaway from this case study, I'll say a couple of the very valid points here in the chat. So if you're not reading the chat, just chime in there, both with your comments and as well as the feedback which others are giving. I think very valid suggestions. I think the takeaway I take is transitions are generally hard. And I think the CFO didn't take the time to understand that in this specific case. I think the CFO is a well-tenured CFO, so it's not that they don't understand this generally. But in this specific case, they didn't. And more importantly, I would say, we try and remediate more than prevent. And sometimes preventing support, providing the preventive support is really what is needed. I see in the chat that NK, you are not hearing audio, but can I check if others can? Okay. So I'll continue and NK may be one of the. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'll move on to the next study, next case study. Any questions on this one before I move on, or any thoughts? Anybody wants to chime in with their? I think a couple of you already shared great feedback here in the chat. So thank you again. Okay. The next one. This is a senior leader in one of the largest FMCG brands you all know of. They were, again, sponsored a coach, but the sponsor in this case was their dotted line manager. As part of the process, there was a goals alignment session between the coach and the sponsor without the client. And the sponsor felt that the coachee should have different goals than what they had identified. So the coachee identified a few goals. The coach shared those with the sponsor in a one-on-one conversation. And the sponsor felt these are not the right goals. And the sponsor says to the coach that, look, let me speak to the coachee. I think they're not getting what is intended for this process. And they go and speak to the coachee. The next session, the coachee shows up in a very adversarial frame of mind. Previous session, which was, I think, the one or two intro sessions which had happened before the alignment session, those were very friendly. But this time, the coachee shows up in a very adversarial mindset. And eventually, after a few sessions, very soon after, the coach terminates the engagement. If you are the coach in this situation, what would you do? If you want to speak up, raise your hands, or you can also type as before. Yeah. Circle back with the sponsor. Kaushik, do you mean who should circle back, Kaushik? And Jeff, good point. Yeah, you'll need to meet. Yeah, the coach needs to circle back. Yeah. Yeah, Maru, I hope I'm saying your name right, but that's a very valid point, to realign on goals transparently. So from my perspective, there were a few misses here. I think we talk about in the coaching process, anybody who has coached ever knows the word contracting. And while contracting is very important as part of the coaching program between the coach and the coachee, there is contracting required between coach and the sponsor or coach and the organization. And I think that was a miss in this case. So the coach and the sponsor didn't agree on how the sponsor would get involved. And the second thing where the coach didn't slow down to pause in the moment. Again, this is about a moment. They could have pushed back on the sponsor who was stepping into the process between the coach and the coachee. And what the sponsor inadvertently did was actually break the trust between coach and coachee. Because they probably communicated in certain ways, who knows what they said. The coach doesn't know. And the coach, was pretty much handicapped at that point by the sponsor's action. But the coach could have also contracted. And the last thing I would say in this case, what the coach could have done faster was actually they should have terminated the engagement earlier. They were slow to terminate the engagement because the moment the sponsor stepped in that kind of a way, and the moment the coach realized that this has broken trust significantly, I think going ahead for the sake of going ahead with sessions was fairly useless. And it's a cost on time, money, credibility. And without trust, there is no coaching. As we all know, anybody who has been a coach or been coached, if there's no trust, and that trust broke here. So yeah, that's my takeaway. But I think you all had valid observations here, which is my point about contracting. How do you clarify the goals? How do you make sure that the process, as coaches and even as organizations contracting with coaches, how do you make sure that the process is well agreed upon? And then people who are in the process abide by the process. Okay. Let's move on to the next case study. This is a leading fintech in Asia Pacific, growing fast, lots of change. One of the HR team leaders proposed that coaching would be helpful for the C-suite leaders. There was eagerness to try coaching. The HR leader identified the coaches. The CHRO was partially involved in the process, not fully involved. But interestingly, the founders in this company didn't jump into coaching along with the other C-level leaders. They waited out. Subsequently, a couple of months later, one of the founders found their own coach. The other founders didn't. And the C-suite leaders, while they were very busy, they went with coaching anyways. And in this case, coaching did have a moderate impact, but not as much stickiness or impact as both the organization and the coach would have liked. Again, where's an opportunity here for who to slow down in what way, and what could have been done differently? If anybody wants to speak up, that would be very nice, because it feels like I'm only hearing my voice. So feel free to raise your hand, and Sunanda or Himani will unmute. Yeah, Bilal, good point. The coaching should have been delayed further. Maybe they're not ready. Manish, I think the C-suite leaders all had chemistry sessions and things like that to identify their coaches. So they were not forced to pick a coach. Zara, what do you mean by commit to actions? Could you elaborate on that or speak up if you feel comfortable? I had
Zara
4.
and-
Yeah,
Zara and
go
Manish,
ahead.
if you'd like to speak up, the mic is all yours.
Yeah, I'd like to go if it's all right. Yeah, so
Thank
from
you.
the data provided, it's not clear what was really the trigger for going for coaching. All you say is HR proposed coaching. They wanted to try coaching. So the background is essential to understand what is the need, what was the context, what was the gaps that were sought to be filled through any leadership intervention, and therefore why coaching. So I think that would be interesting to identify, because that will also set the context as to how committed the leaders were to going in for coaching and working on the development areas. Thank you.
Manish, you have covered my next slide, so thank you. I think you're spot on. What was missing here was what I would say is the answer for these 4 questions, which Manish summarized very well, but I'll present in form of questions. First of all, the need was not very clear. Why coaching is the... Hi, Zara, do you want to jump in?
Oh, sorry.
You can speak up, no worries, if you want to. Otherwise, I can keep going.
No, just keep going.
Okay, thank you. No worries. Yeah, so I say Manish summarized it well, but I would say, the need for coaching was not clear. Why coaching is the best modality for the need was not clear. The results expected were not clear. The buy-in was not very high. It was one of those things as a startup and as fast-moving organizations, let's try this kind of mentality. And frankly, the coachees didn't have time or full commitment in some cases to invest in their change. They were just too busy. So frankly, the timing was not right. And this is where the organization should have slowed down in answering these questions for themselves before they spent the money, the time, and the effort. Again, not gone all to waste, because I think quite a few coaches benefited to some degree. But frankly, the level of change which coaching can bring when both time, commitment, and buy-in is there, I think that level was not achieved here. So next, I'd love to move on. These are all case studies from largely, individuals getting coached, and there are different angles to those. But let's move on to the final case study for today, which is how do you set coaching culture? And here I'll take an example of a large financial services organization. These guys have set up a coaching culture now, and they have an internal bench of 200 trained coaches across 30 plus countries. So this is a large multinational. They have coached over 1,500 clients. And they started with an underrepresented group in the organization. Given the size of the organization, they had certain groups which are minorities, let's say, in the organizational context. And they took their time, they piloted the program, and the results have been fantastic for this organization. 1 in 6 coaching clients got promoted after the coaching program. Many of the coaching clients actually ended up becoming coaches because they benefited so much. So the same story as me. I got coached and then became a coach. And I think overall, from a retention perspective, that really helped this program. This is just an example, and I'll share my takeaways, but I'm keen to hear if you now put a different hat on. So far, we have been talking about as a coach or as a sponsor. But let's say you are responsible for fostering a coaching culture, or you're advising as an external consultant or a coach to the HR leaders or to the business leaders how to foster a coaching culture. What are a couple of suggestions you would give to make this a successful program? And you can pick some lessons from what I have shared, but maybe you have seen. Thank you, Manish. Yeah, clarity objectives, role modeling, train managers as coaches. Maru, great. Yeah, we see that more often happening. Yeah, not just external dependency, which is what this organization did, by the way. With a clear process for implementing coaching culture. Great. Yeah. Look, here are my takeaways based on having spoken to the person who set this up in this organization. I think the first thing is to start small and make sure you prove coaching works. And prove that whatever you're setting up works. And in this case, I'll give a shout out to Katie, who set this up in her organization. And if anybody wants to know more, please connect with me and I can connect you to Katie. But in this case, Katie took her time. When Katie started rolling out this program in her organization, she took her time. The first cohort was 9 months long. Subsequently, the cohorts of coaching became 4 months long, but they didn't know that any better at that point. They also found a group which was highly incentivized to invest in their own development. And they tied the coaching to a company objective, which was D&I in this case. So they focused on, supporting leaders in that segment who were diverse and from different communities. And I think one of the beautiful things which they did is to also create supporting mechanisms for people who are becoming coaches. And they had the benefit of coaches who were more tenured. And those coaches almost become coaching supervisors. They were not trained coaching supervisors, but they were called internally inspirers. And they were then mentoring the younger coaches who were getting trained as this program went from 10 coaches in the beginning to 200 plus coaches, what it is now. And eventually, what this organization did, because they had scale as well, they partnered with one of the leading coaching organizations which had a platform. And they leveraged their platform to collect data, track the ROI. And by doing all of this, they continued to get support. Initially, this program was, even the HR leaders were a bit hesitant. By the mid of this program, the CEO was sold. CEO and the management team was sold. And this is a multi-billion-dollar organization, one of the biggest organizations in financial services, and a global one. As I said, they have now coaches they have coaches now around the world. But yeah, I think what you guys are saying is very much aligned, like tracking initiative, tracking impact, updating coaching initiatives, adjusting it, setting clear processes. Very valid points. So really what deliberate looks like for me, and I'll again probably switch back to the individual coaching hat for a moment. There's a before coaching, there's during coaching and after coaching. And a deliberate process looks like, before coaching to create buy-in and commitment, to make sure that contracting is done right. Make sure there's a development plan and the right parties are engaged. During coaching, I think check-in as agreed upon earlier. And after the coaching ends, let that not be the end of the change process, because change sometimes takes time. Not sometimes, actually. I'll take that word back. Change always takes longer in these cases because we are talking about behavior change. So the organization needs to both support, measure the change which is happening even after coaching has ended. And as I was reflecting on this conversation and these case studies, really, I think my takeaways would be behavior change takes fairly long. Studies say that it takes 8 to 12 months for most people. Often systems, whether those are internal individual systems, team systems, or organizational systems, we resist change. There are defensive reactions like the one from Tom, which we talked about. Building trust and psychological safety is often hard, and it's hard to accelerate that process. And often in Asia, we value relationship building. So coaching anyways, I believe anywhere in the world is not a transactional process. And that needs time. So really my ask and my urge of all of you is to, as you get into coaching process, whether you are as a sponsor, organization, or as a coach, I think make sure that you take the little bit of time required to go slow at the right moments so that you can create the results which you want. And coaching be the change which you want. So with that, I've come to my end. So thank you for chiming in. I'd love to connect with all of you if you want, either on LinkedIn or WhatsApp. My contacts are here. And I'd love to open the forum for questions. Or even reflections. Actually, by the way, I forgot. I would love for all of you to just take a moment and identify what is your one takeaway from this conversation today. And please share in the chat. Thank you, Bilal. Any questions or any other takeaways? Thank you, Wilson. Very well said. Not to be seduced by content or result. Watch the process. Coaching does need courage, Rahima. I am vehemently in agreement with that.
Yes. So any questions?
Thank you.
Any insights? Anything that is coming up for you before we of course thank Amit for all the
Yes.
value that he shared with
Yeah,
us.
I mean, it's Jeff here. Yeah, I think, yeah, very, very good presentation. Thank you. I mean, obviously, when we are coaching someone, we are telling ourselves to slow down. Now, the whole process got to slow down.
And I would say, Jeff, just quickly on that one, doesn't have to be slowed down in every part of it, right? But at the critical points, I think it is important to slow down, indeed. Sorry to interrupt,
Yeah,
but just want to
it's true.
clarify that.
I think it's true. And the one that I always have this is a paradox, right? Because in a way, organization always say that coaching takes time, and coach the leaders do not have time. They always urgent. Everything is urgent, right? So now we tell them to slow down more. So how does that look? Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I think each of these organizations, barring one, which is the fintech, I would say, they had done coaching before. This is not the first time for some of these are large multinationals. Right? This is not the first time they were doing this. But in that specific case, something went missing from one of the parties in the process. Right? And I would say, as participants in the process of coaching, whether as a sponsor, organization, manager, coachee, coach, I think we all hold responsibility equally to notice those moments a little bit more carefully. So bringing the skill of coaching, which is to notice the moments and pause when needed, into parts of the process which are not the actual coaching session. I think that's what I learned as I reflect on these case studies.
Yeah, excellent.
Any other questions or comments? And thank you everyone for chiming in. This was a lot more fun and interesting because of all your feedback on the chat as well as on the phone.
So
Thank you.
I have one reflection when you're talking. We say that, I don't know how much we believe in, 70% of the success actually is due to the coachee. Maybe 30% is due to the coach. But I also feel that when a coachee is been assigned, not that they want a coach, but they are saying that you need to enroll in the coaching process. I think the first session by the coach is very, very important. I think is to be able to convince them that I'm a coach. I'll be the good coach for you, and you trust the process and trust me. And after that, the subsequent sessions, it depends on them now. So I would say maybe the first session depends on the coach very much, and the other sessions depend on the coachee. I don't know. This is my view from what I can reflect.
No, thank you. My sense on that one, Jeff, is I think it's again a coaching conversation about what is the frame of mind they bring to the coaching program, right? And how are they arriving in this program? And if the coach does sense hesitation, then there's a coaching around that hesitation. If the coach sense commitment and excitement, because sometimes, organizations nominate people and they show with a lot of vigor and excitement. And some people show up with like, hey, give me a quick tip and trick and let me go on to my day life. Right? So there is, I think, for us to be present in that moment in the first conversation around how are they arriving and what energy are they bringing to this process and this program. I think that's how I would think about that. But valid point. Yeah.
Agree. Yeah,
I think we are up on time, if I'm not wrong. So I'd love to give the mic back to Sunanda and Imani. This has been lovely, and thank you for also teaching me through this process today and this conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you once again. Thank you. It was a wonderful session, and you could see by the energy of the audience that how much they really enjoyed and how much they found it insightful. Stay on for the rest of the conference if you can. Thank you once again.
Thank you.